Arbitrage, and we do have some updates for you guys today.
Yeah, we want to give you some updates on some articles that we came across in the last week or so. And some of them kind of slid under our radar, but we're going to get you up to date because they are still pertinent to what is going on today. So, but first and foremost, I want to give a shout out to my son, Gordon A. Simon Jr., whose birthday it is. He will be turning 13, so we want to give a shout out to him. Get it in. There you go. 13, the big 1-3.
And the little baby think he getting birthday gifts too. So, there he is.
Here we go. So,
but you're not going to get no birthday gifts. Not yet.
Apparently it's going to be... But June asked me for Black Money.
Okay. All right. So apparently it's gonna be a big party this weekend. I don't know. It's gonna be like
rides, big party.
Animals, and stuff.
Big presents.
You're not getting any presents.
No presents for you, sir.
So, because it's not your birthday.
I got like 7 months.
Yep, you get 7 months. That's very good.
June's birthday.
Sunday.
June's birthday Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
But can we build for it this weekend?
Yes, you can build a fort. That you can do.
All right.
Okay.
You say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So yeah, we just want to give a shout out to my namesake, one of 4 of the tribe. But so yeah, we're gonna get right into this. It's some very interesting information that all ties together that my beautiful wife actually put together, and she's gonna lead you down the road and show you how this stuff intertwines. And I'll just be here to bounce off anything that you need to know. So. The floor is yours.
So the conspiracy continues, right? And I noticed that in my research, a lot of people say that conspiracies aren't true. And it's like, you guys got it wrong, right? Yeah. If a party's conspiring against you, that is the conspiracy. It's the theory part that may be true or not true. So I wanted to clear that up because I've been hearing a lot of people saying like, it's not a conspiracy. It's actually true. It is a conspiracy because it's true. So I just wanted to kind of get that out there. Stan and Chappelle House are wishing Junior a happy birthday. Oh, Chappelle House has a daughter turning 13 on the 31st. Happy birthday to her. And thank you. Chappelle House said that we're awesome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
So as your queen of conspiracies, and it's like we're making light of it, but it's really, really great, really serious. And we're gonna remind you, do your stack reminder.
Oh yeah, we gotta be stacking. Every day, every week, every month, however you can do it, just a little bit. I'm telling you, a little bit goes a long, long way. So we have to be diligent stackers of what we say. We like to say Bitcoin and precious metals, diligent stackers.
Right, dollar cost averaging, doing all of the things that this community is more than familiar with doing, and it should be more than a habit now. Now it should be like breathing, right? You don't even think about it; it just gets done. Okay, so what I'm bringing to you today is we've been reminding you guys that go get that cold medicine with the decongestants and stuff that they're going to be taking off the shelves and you won't have access to, right? And even if you don't need it right now, October is the start of cold and flu season. Just assume, right, that the conspirators are coming up with a new reason to get us locked up, to keep us locked in the house. So you want to try to be as healthy as possible this season. 2, we've been telling you guys every time you go to the grocery store, you should be getting additional water and additional non-perishable items, right? This is important because what we're talking about today is famine, right? And I'm using quotes because famine is a real thing. We are going to see some sort of it, but I just kind of want to show you how the spider is weaving its web. Chappelle House said, we bought silver quarters from a pawn shop yesterday. Yay, they bought constitutional silver.
There we go, that's what I'm talking about.
Hubby is skeptical about their authenticity. They felt real to me. What year are the years on the quarter before 1965? Because that's what makes them real, right? So if you have quarters and they're minted before 1965, then they do have silver in them, and it's what is considered constitutional silver. Now, keep in mind, just from a business aspect, a pawn shop is not going to sell you quarters. 1930, 1964, there you go, right? So you have constitutional silver. But I was going to say that a pawn shop is not in the business of losing money. So they absolutely check those things. Pawn shops typically check the authenticity of items prior to, and not only the authenticity of it, but they have to make sure that stuff isn't stolen.
Yeah.
So you do have constitutional silver. So yay.
And so also you can look, they call them local.
There we go. Okay, it looks like the live is still going. Are you guys still online? If anybody in the comments, let me know if you're still online, because it looks like the live is still going. And I still see 4 people in the room.
Okay. No, I think they can see us.
I don't know if they can. Okay, good. The Metaverse President, shout out to the Metaverse President. Okay, good, we're glad. I'm sorry about that. Y'all know we in Mexico and we have to have multiple internet networks. When one goes down, we can just hop onto the other. So we're sorry about that. So we want to talk about famine today. And I was doing my homework for you guys, trying to get more information about what happened in the World Economic Forum Sustainable Development Goals Summit that took place in New York City September 18th, that weekend. And what I found was actually quite interesting. I put links in the description. I typically don't do that, but I did that today because I wanted you guys to read the articles, but also check out the dates and stuff. So, for the first article, this article was written March 14, 2023, and it's talking about before the next shock, the world needs a Marshall Plan for food insecurity. So in 2022 to about March 2023, everyone or a lot of the news outlets, let me make that clear. A lot of the news outlets were talking about a famine that was coming in 2023. We are right now in Q4 of 2023, and we haven't yet seen this famine of biblical proportions.
Yes.
Why is that important? It's important because they're telling you what they're going to do next. They're trying to make it seem like these famine, these food shortages, scarcity, they're trying to make it seem like these things are happening due to natural
No, natural causes.
natural causes,
Yeah.
climate change, because the sun is burning too hot and it's drying up, the different waterways that we use in order to ship food to you. That's one of the reasons why you're going to experience these things. And I just don't hit us with the okey doke, right? I'm going through the articles, and I have the articles stringed together to really narrate a story to you, to kind of tell you the truth. So right now, this particular article, I'm just going to highlight a few things. It says, in recent years, the world has seen a host of interconnected challenges, and this is true, with the crisis in one part of the world setting off an epiphenomenal emergency or emergencies elsewhere. So we have Russia's invasion of the Ukraine, cutting off many countries to their main supply of wheat and coarse grains. That disrupted global food supply chains that were already stressed out because of the COVID pandemic. We know the COVID pandemic was a problem. We do know that waterways, significant waterways that have been around forever, since like the start of time,
Yeah.
are drying up. Go ahead,
I.e.
baby.
the Euphrates.
The
Right?
Euphrates River is drying up.
Mhm.
We also know that for us in the United States, the Mississippi River is drying up at levels they've never seen before, which affects, for those of you who are good with geography, the Ohio River, right? And those are our two main vessels in order to ship food and get food imported from other places. So we brought that up. This led to food insecurity in regions of the world like East Africa, so they were already having a problem. Meanwhile, in response to inflationary pressures, some of which, and this article says, and I quote, some of which derived from government's response to the pandemic. Okay, hello, folks. It's from the government response, period, right? Anytime something happens, your government reaches into their magical checkbook pocket, they go in their backyard, they shake that magical money tree, and they give money to any Tom, Dick, and Harry who asks for it. And those articles are at the bottom. Those are like the last few links that I sent you, because like I said, the whole point of propaganda is to get you to believe what they want you to believe with some truth sprinkled in. Our job is to do our own research so we can get the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so that we can develop our own economic responses, so we can develop our own economic funding and plans,
Yes.
right, for our household. Each household should be its own little teeny tiny government, right? You are the king of, well, he's the king of this household, right? But I help. But this is, right, the Simon family government, right? Where it's like this tiny microcosm where we have to really do our best to outsmart and outstrategize the governments, plural, that we cannot trust, right? This is voting season. And I notice my timeline is strong with people who have a very strong confidence in the ability for their United States government to save them when they are in peril. I do not share that sentiment. So you guys are on here because you also do not share that sentiment. So we want to do our homework a little bit to kind of see, again, it takes a long time for that granite ball of famine to start rolling, but once it rolls, you can't get crushed. So we're going through this narrative, this timeline, in order that we can get our households in order individually and collectively, so that we are not, we do not suffer the effects of what it is that they're trying to do. So let me go ahead back to the article real quick. So they talk about the government's response to the pandemic, but we know it's the government's response to anything, period. And states around the world sought to tighten monetary policy by raising interest rates. For those of you who are not aware, the Fed put out articles stating that they're going to do an interest rate hike towards the end of quarter four, so we know maybe November, December. So we mentioned that. Such financial measures added further burdens to developing countries struggling with high debt loads and currency devaluation. Notice they use the term developing countries. Somebody reading that article may be like, oh, okay, good, they're not talking about us. Yes, they are talking about you, even though we are already a developed nation. Our debt load, you had in the last slide, you told us about.
Oh, it was 33 trillion, and it was against the National Defense Fund. So they were saying it was more than the National Defense Fund. 33 trillion was that number.
And I'm sorry, I'm sitting down, y'all. I'm not feeling great today. So normally I would be standing with her. I just need to sit. So we are struggling with the debt load. You guys can see the debt clock. We keep hearing about the deficit. We keep hearing about government overspending. And I'm going to hit y'all with some numbers just for 2023. Right? You're going to be like, holy macaroni.
Let's get the people a shout out. Our family.
It's Chappelle House Love. They always show us a lot of love, but they're just kind of commenting on. And if
Okay.
you know, say, yeah, you guys are back.
can't
I
see
promise I'm going to shout y'all out as y'all. We love y'all. We appreciate y'all hopping in the chats. It just let us know, like, y'all can see us, you can hear us. We didn't give out information that you guys weren't sure about, because sometimes we can get like blind. I'm doing a lot of umming today. I'm sorry. I'm going to clean it up, y'all. My public speaking. And I just did it again. We do a lot of research,
Yes.
and sometimes we can take for granted that you may know this information and you don't. We do need to give a little bit of the backstory. Chappelle like Chapel like the church. I'm sorry, Chapel. It's not Chappelle like our friend, it's Chapel. Chapel like the church. Thank you so much for correcting me. Chapel like the church. I won't mess it up again. Chapel House Love. Love you. So we're looking at how they're developing the narrative, but we also want to break down what the truth of that is. And we know that it's not only undeveloped nations or developing nations or frontier nations or emerging nations. Developed nations such as the United States, such as Europe, these Western worlds that are fully developed also have a huge debt load and are suffering from currency devaluation. We know that BRICS nation within the next 36 months state or claim that they're absolutely going to have their currency ready to go, and that places are going to be able to ditch the dollar to use their currency. We know that within those 36 months, not everyone is going to be able to ditch the US dollar for payment settlements.
Right. This is true. And so that's the problem that they have now is most payment settlements are settled in the US dollar, and they want to get around that. And so you've been seeing little things, if you keep up with the BRICS nations and the things that they are going on, adding new nations, the BRICS plus adding new nations like Saudi Arabia recently, I just article I seen, so they're doing a deal there. So that's very important because there's a lot of money in oil in Saudi Arabia, correct?
Correct.
So, you see right there, they're making moves outside of the United States. They're not bringing the United States into the fold to be a part of this. The United States weaponizes the power of the US dollar, and these nations are sick of it and they want to do something else. And so, like she said, 36 months, they're working hard. They're working diligently to get this done.
And they are propping up the dollar. We see that often, especially with the future Fed hike.
Yeah.
Also, right, let's talk about the valuation of the currency. Right now, our currency is basically the petrodollar. It's backed by the U.S. military and its ability to just nuke whoever.
It's backed by men with guns, as they say.
And by public confidence. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that because I'm going to show you how they work really hard to get America's opinion to sway in order to enter into wars. How they use the propaganda machine to do that. Mm-hmm. All of those things, when you look at it, devalue our currency. Our currency, we know it, it's not backed by anything. And that's one of the reasons why the Bitcoin community really came together.
Right.
In order to really try to get that kicked off. And look how hard they're fighting against it. Look how hard the government is trying to use anything else that they can and not really implement Bitcoin as a currency, because once if they ever even thought to implement Bitcoin as a currency, it will account for every single transaction. And they don't want that. Part of the currency devaluation is, this is my master economist, I'm more of an intermediate economist, but is constantly adding currency to the, what do you call it? The money pool, right? The money pool is constantly being inflated, and there's nothing accounting for all of those dollars, which is leading towards more economic devaluation of our currency. For those of you who don't know, we do live in Mexico, and the peso, the Mexican peso, is a soft currency. United States dollar is a hard currency. And believe it or not, even with the distinction between those two currencies, the Mexican peso is strengthening against the US dollar. So you have soft currencies, and that's not the only currency that's strengthening against the dollar, but we have these soft currencies now that are strengthening against what's considered a hard currency.
Yeah, and even we read this morning, which we considered a hard currency, the euro is strengthening against the dollar as well. So the dollar is having some problems right now. We talked about a few weeks ago the Golden Cross.
Yes.
So it's in the range, Golden Cross. From a technical standpoint, there's some ranges that the dollar may need to touch before it continues upward. And so we always keep our eye on that. And like she said, it is still the world reserve currency. So you got to put respect on the name. That's why you still have it. Take it and invest wisely.
Right.
Invest wisely, because you can't just let it sit in your bank account. Just can't have it at the house. There's certain, you might have to have an emergency fund at the house, right? And you might have some money in the bank on the sideline, but your extra, try to put that somewhere where it can keep its spending power. This isn't the time, to be out here gambling, racing, and chasing some of these altcoins. And we are not financial advisors, but I'm just telling you, this is the time to hunker down and be safe and protect what you have, right? So, I know it was free and loose a couple years ago. That's a good old days, right?
And you can try new altcoins and take that risk. This is not the time for risk taking.
Yeah, let's hunker down and have the safety of your family, generations to come, and whatnot. So. I just wanted to get that in there. Sorry.
So Chapel, no, baby, I needed that. So Chapel House Love says, is it a conspiracy, or did BRICS speed up their process after the sanctioning and the freezing of Russia's assets? Also, does it seem like the U.S. is purposely imploding in on itself? Yes, yes, and yes. I don't think that BRICS is speeding up the process. I think that they are, because they're smaller, right? It's just a couple of nations getting together. And these nations are, I don't want to say they're sovereign, but they're the ones making the decisions. I think that they're able to get things done faster. I think that they're more efficient and proficient at the goal that they have. And they really only have one linear goal, right? Their goal isn't diluted in multiple places like typical bureaucratic governmental processes are. Yeah. There's no Congress. They're not writing up a bill and then it's got to go here and then this person has to approve it. It got shot back down. You got to rewrite it. They don't have those type of bureaucratic processes in place. So they're able to efficiently and proficiently get things done faster, which I believe. And yes, in the last few shows, I've been telling you, and I'm going to watch my words carefully, right? Because we don't want pages and whole channels to get torn down. No. That the behavior of what I'm seeing in our country looks like self-sabotage. That the house of cards is collapsing in on itself on purpose.
Right.
So, and we'll talk more as soon as we can kind of get the ball rolling on getting more information from the World Economic Forum. I'll be able to really, I have my suspicions, but we really like to vet information. We like to make sure it's cemented. We can prove this. We can show you where we found this before we start making what I would like to call allegations or statements.
Yeah, we like to have our receipts.
Right, yeah, I want to have receipts.
Yeah, we have receipts.
So here we go. So we kind of covered a lot of the interconnected issues, but we're being more honest about what those interconnected issues are. Now, added, like I said, this article was written in March of 2023. It's October 12th. The United States citizens are in conflict with Palestine because Israel and the United States are like this. Now, interesting thing, I asked my handsome husband, I said,
oh, okay.
Babe, Did you find it odd that it took the president 13 days to get to Maui? Maui is completely, it looked like a war-torn country, completely devastated. It took the United States president 13 days to get to an area of the United States that is completely in ruins.
Yep.
But for those of you who are familiar, on the eve of the Sabbath, Hamas made an attack out of Gaza into Israel. That was Friday evening, so that's the eve of the Sabbath.
Yep.
Biden was already in Israel Saturday morning, 6 a.m., handing Israel I want to say it was a $20 billion check. But I have the receipt for that, so I'm going to look up the number to make sure that it's accurate. I find that interesting. And what's more interesting is that the whole point of this show is to show you, and it is to set up for you the cascading series of unfortunate events where we have proof that the United States government does not have the interest of its citizens, but it has the interest of their foreign policies and agendas, et cetera, et cetera. And this is the whole point of the show, is that you have to establish your own personal government at home. You have to develop your own fiscal monetary policies, your own monetary budgets, your own monetary policies. For us, that is obviously we do have to use cash for transactions. So that's the dollar, that's Bitcoin, and that's precious metals for us. That's our economic monetary policy for whatever period we're going to do it. And as we watch, we try to do our best to forecast if those policies need to change. Is there an opportunity for those policies to change? Did an event happen where we absolutely have to change that policy? And you're seeing that more and more our personal monetary policies are changing from cash. Yes, you do need cash on the sidelines, but in order to preserve your economic power, that labor that you put into the money that you earned, we have to be more diligent and we have to be more strategic and cognizant as to how much effort we're going to put into ensuring the development of that, ensuring the growth of that.
And you also have to have patience as you do this. Patience, because people will be like, oh man, it's down a little bit, it's up. You have to have patience. You know, we talked about this
roller coaster
in a show a long time ago about time preference, but it's what we know as a low time preference, where you have the long view, the macro view. High time preference means people want turnover returns in a short amount of time. So we're talking about low time preference, macro view. And so, you know, patience is paramount in this situation as you try to put your money away to keep its spending power.
Right. Okay, so we talked about that article. You guys can go ahead and finish reading a lot of these articles, but I wanted to bring that up because, like I said, I want to set this up for you. But they're basically going into the article explaining to you that 345 million people in 82 countries are experiencing an acute food insecurity. Okay, let's move on to the next article. The next
Can we
article.
talk about that real quick?
Oh yes, go ahead.
Acute food
Insecurity, even the way they phrase it, right?
But what we want to talk about is you see in major cities and even not
yes,
medium-sized cities, you see these what we call food deserts.
Yes.
And so you could be downtown, where New York City, you name the city, Chicago, and you can't find any fresh fruits and vegetables. Right. You can't find any fresh chicken or fish. It's just fast food, or you got to go out to eat and all this stuff. And these are what we call food deserts. We live out here. We go to fresh food open air markets daily.
Every day.
And there's a gentleman, and my memory fails me, but he was a gentleman who was he was on the Max Kaiser report, if you guys are familiar with the Kaiser report. And he was telling people that they're going to need to start moving out from city centers, and not just to the suburbs, but out to rural areas because of the lockdown, the food deserts, and then now, as she said, coming super cities. Yeah, so it's all.
But it boils down to their ability to control you with food. Not you, but the population with food. To control the population with security. To control the population with convenience. And we can go on how they want to control the population. But right now we're talking about famine. They're using these buzzwords. And I keep telling you about these buzzwords, right? So acute food insecurity. They're not going out to say famine, because I would think 345 million people not having access to food is famine to me.
Yeah.
That's what the Bible said, right? It's what the Bible called it. They called it famine. No, we're going to give it a cute buzzword and really downplay the seriousness.
Mm-hmm.
They want to scare you when they want to scare you, but when they want to give you the truth about something and they want to downplay it, because what they want to do is create the problem and then offer the solution. And I'm going to show you how that's happening right now. So we're moving on. The UN World Economic Forum behind global war on farmers. That link should also be found in the description. It says the Agenda 2030, so those are the sustainable development goals you keep hearing me talk about, at the root of sustainability policies that could lead to food shortages. I'm just going to read a little bit about it. The escalating regulatory attack, these are war terms, on agricultural producers from Holland and the United States to Sri Lanka is beyond is closely tied to the United Nations Agenda 2030. So I had mentioned several shows ago that one of their agendas is to completely eliminate poverty and hunger. So on one hand, you're telling me that 82 countries, 345 million people have acute food insecurity, but then on the other hand, you're telling me that you're attacking the farmers who grow the food. Let's continue to read this article just a little bit more. It says, here we go. High-level Chinese Communist Party members within the UN system help create the Sustainable Development Goals and are currently helping lead the organization's implementation of the global plan. Hold that thought, because I want to tie something back in together. Notice I said agricultural producers from Holland and the United States to Sri Lanka and beyond are in this UN agenda for 2030. And notice I'm saying now the Chinese Communist Party, who we're supposed to be at odds with, who are part of the BRICS nations, are helping lead the organization's implementation in the global plan. This is why I said they're always in bed together.
And, not to belabor the point, but I will always go back 2030. If you guys are familiar with the Fourth Turning, Strauss and Howe, a great book. We did a couple shows on that. Mm-hmm. But the Fourth Turning is supposed to culminate in around the year 2030.
Absolutely.
So all these things are culminating around that year 2030, a very important year.
Which we're only now, we're headed into, we're only 6 years away. We can't say anymore that we're 7 years away from it. We're 6 years away. But I want to show you how they're all in bed together, working together for these sustainable development goals. Here go that buzzword again. When I hear the word sustainable, it means something that can be maintained, something that goes on and on and on, something that doesn't have a problem in its processes, in outcomes, in results.
So it sounds, that's what we think of when we hear sustainable.
All right, so when you hear that word, that psychologically is what comes to mind. I'm going to read it carefully. It says, the UN-backed sustainability policies on agriculture and food production, remember their goal is to abolish hunger, would lead to economic devastation, shortages of critical goods, widespread famine, and dramatic loss of individual freedoms.
Wow.
You see how they want to put a picture in your mind, but when you start researching the truth about that thing, it is in direct juxtaposition of its definition. I'm going to read that one more time for those in the back who didn't hear it. If left unchecked, multiple experts state the UN-backed sustainability policies on agriculture and food production would lead to economic devastation. Look at the gravity of these words. Shortages of critical goods, widespread famine. Oh, now we use the word famine. We didn't use acute. Right? Widespread famine and the dramatic loss of individual freedoms. I want you guys to continue reading this on your own, but it ends in At least this idea ends, and already millions of people worldwide, we said 345 million, are facing dangerous food shortages. Notice that this article that is telling you the truth, because it's written by a third party, multiple experts of a third party, not part of the propaganda machine, are using terms like dangerous food shortages and not acute, I can't remember what it was, acute something insecurity, acute food insecurity. And officials around the world say that those are going to get worse as the years go on. All right, painting a picture for y'all. Let's go to the next one. So the next article is the Washington Times, and it's basically explaining the war on farmers. I'm not gonna go into too much of it because I do want you guys to read it, but I want it to kind of be a receipt to really cement the fact of what's happening. So humanity's facing the worst hunger crisis the world has seen in decades. This is written July 7, 2022. These are unprecedented times. Right now, it's under attack. According to Bloomberg, hundreds of furious Dutch farmers gathered to protest the government's nitrogen reduction targets. So this is the Netherlands. It's the EU's largest exporter of meat. And we're noticing in the supermarkets, it's bioengineered meat now. They're reducing the number of pigs, chickens, and cows by 30%. Deliberate shrinking of the farmer sector is difficult to disagree about. After the United States, the Netherlands is the world's leading agriculture producer, exporting vegetables, meat, dairy products to millions of people. I wanted you to see after the United States, because we just talked about how the United States and all of these other countries, there's a war on farmers. You can just Google this stuff. You can watch the videos once you Google it. But they're basically finding ways to create immense scarcity in the food supply. Now, why haven't we seen the famine in 2023? I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to come back to my point. Remember how I told you guys they met in September about the Sustainable Development Goals, and we never heard anything else? And I said, it's odd that they're so quiet about it. Multiple outlets, but I'm going to read this one. Global leaders have warned that the UN Sustainable Development Goals are in peril as they issued calls for a political declaration to accelerate the efforts on implementation. The 23 agenda remains our overarching roadmap for achieving sustainable development goals and overcoming the multiple crises that we face. It's either moving much too slowly or has regressed below the 2015 baseline. So what does that mean, Aaron, when you read that? What it means is they were going to create a crisis, and I think the crisis part is in place, but they're going to offer you a solution. That's how it works. They create the crisis and offer the solution.
Right.
The solution, the way they're going to put the solution together is off pace. So they can't create the crisis yet. Or else they and their families will get caught in the crisis. And the whole point of it is to do it so that the elite are unaffected. So this is the narrative I'm weaving together for you. But I wanted to make one more point. In California, home to 124,000 farmers, people are being paid, compensated. There is recompense to not grow crops. That is in the Washington Times article. I want y'all to read it. A peculiar move, considering the Golden State is responsible for a quarter of the nation's crops and 2/3 of the nation's fruit and nuts. They are being paid to not, they are being paid to create scarcity, which is devastating to the food supply. And they have to tell you the truth about it. That's one thing. Unclean spirits will tell you the truth about the destruction that they will bring upon you. Right? Again, this is the spiritual war. Just like God prophesies and he tells you what's going to happen and what he's going to do, unclean spirits also have to tell, because you have to, when we don't do anything about it and we go along with it, we are in silent agreement. And that's why a lot of these things are carried out. So if you're in a place where a lot of us are like, well, what can we do about that? What you can do about that is be strategic in your own home. And if each individual home is strategic about how they move and the things that they need to do, again, we talked about behavioral modification, then collectively, we are putting a stumbling block in the way of this marble granite ball that's trying to crush everybody in its way.
Yeah, and that's with our our master teacher Neely Fuller will tell you, work in small. He says work in small clandestine groups,
Yes.
and to get things done because
Yes.
once the group gets too large, and you've seen it time and time and time over, it gets infiltrated and destroyed, right? And it keeps happening. So you got to be careful as you build these groups and the people that you let come in these groups and be a part of what you are trying to do. We've seen it with the Black Panthers. We've seen it with uh,
Civil rights movement.
Marcus Garvey.
Yeah,
We've
Marcus
seen it
Garvey.
time and time again. Malcolm X. We keep seeing it.
Now
right?
watch where it's working though, because when you think about it, and this is what Chapel House Love was mentioning, does it seem like that they're speeding up their process? No, because they're a smaller clandestine, thank you, group, right? They don't have those bureaucratic processes in place. They're getting stuff done.
Yep.
Right? They said in 36 months, we're going to get this done. Now, notice the World Economic Forum is over 172 countries. They're behind, but they're still inflicting devastation and havoc to the people. But notice since they're behind, that gives you an opportunity, gives you an arbitrage to kind of get things going while they're flittering about trying to kind of get this moving faster. Okay, we're moving on. So we've talked about the famine. Routers, this is from Routers. This is July 12th of 2023. That number, 345 million, is now 735 million people. Okay, that's twice the number.
Ramping up.
And the UN says the world is off track to meet its 2030 goal for abolishing hunger. I want you guys to read that. They are reporting about what the UN is doing. So some of it we take with a grain of salt, but I want to show you how the number from 2022 doubled in 2023 during reporting. I read that. There's one in particular. Okay, so what I did do, because we talk about all these problems, we like to bring you guys solutions. There is a link called valleyfoodstorage.com, and there is an article, Essentials on How to Prepare for the 2023 Food Shortage. And it's not any different than what we've been talking about, but they do have items, and I'm not promoting, they are not sponsors or anything like that, but they do have 72-hour food kits. They have access to bug out bags. They have access, and just giving you ideas as well as things you can do in order to prepare. They're giving you a list of anticipating food items that are likely to face shortages. Now notice we didn't have this shortage in 2023, but it doesn't mean that it's not on pace for 2024 or even 2025. If that's the case, I hate to say great, but great, because that gives us 12 to 24 months in order to prepare and not get caught off guard. The Bible says, do not get caught like a thief in the night, right? Be prepared. Have your windows shuttered, have your door locked, and that thief can't overtake you in the middle of the night. So they talk about wheat and corn shortages, bread shortages, consequences of aluminum shortages. How is an aluminum shortage a strategic way to starve people? Because our non-perishable goods come in these aluminum cans. So when I tell you that they talk about the war on farmers, but we really need to read it as a war on the citizens of the world. You're paying farmers not to farm. You are purposely destroying crops. You are, they've been talking about with the potatoes, because the price was dropping, what they did was they set fire to the excess potato stock. They are doing things to purpose, and now it's a shortage in aluminum, and that's interesting. And when it sits by itself, it doesn't seem like a big deal. If you read an article, there's a shortage on aluminum, you're like, okay, so what does that mean? It means that it affects your food supply.
It does, and that's why we always say if you're going to stack up, you get these canned goods in aluminum, and you make sure that it might be things you don't really want to eat: corn, green beans. What else is it?
Mixed vegetables,
Sometimes
chili, vegetable, a lot of things, and mason jars, which should be the way that we preserve our goods, is expensive for a lot of people.
Yeah, it is. Yes, it is.
That's how they used to jelly fruits and stuff like that's the old school way of doing it. It's the right way to do it because it's glass and it's better for you. Now, the things do perish. They don't perish as quickly, so they're not considered non-perishable items, but mason jars are expensive.
They are.
Because they have to be made in a certain way. Okay, moving on. Now that we did all of that, I have one more article that says, letter, famine, starvation will soon come to America. This was written July 17th of 2023. This is important because this is another interconnected way or reason why things are falling apart. It says, according to statistics, there are 9 billion people on the planet Earth. In Africa, the population doubles every 20 years. In Costa Rica, the population doubles every 20 years. But in the United States, ours doubles every 35 years. That's a problem. We're talking about below replacement. In India, a child is born every 11 seconds. So every time you count from 1 to 11, a child is being born in India. That's how fast their population doubles. People are starving in many countries around the globe. Here goes another interconnected reason why the United States is going to see issues with famine and scarcity in food. Migrants are crossing our southern border in droves. Some are coming as far away as China. These people are coming to help us enjoy our food that may disappear sooner than most of us realize. Our farmers are producing as much food as they can, but remember what I just said. Farmers are being paid to not produce food. So resources are being affected, okay? Let's go to some stats. Let's go to some numbers. The article from FAIR says the total fiscal cost of illegal immigration on U.S. taxpayers from 2022 to March of 2023 is $150.7 billion. So that means $150.7 billion went to everybody but you, the taxpaying citizen.
Yeah.
I'm not finished. That's one interconnected study, right? So they're impeding on the resources. And we're talking about food right now. But a lot of that money was allocated for room and board and food. All right.
And transportation, apparently. As
Oh,
people
yeah, because I got
move
mentioned
around.
Yep.
But yeah, the money it's not reaching us.
Okay. So, and we're just going to work from the 2022 to 2023 time frame, but right now I'm working from literally a 6 or 7 day time frame. Okay. I told you it took our president 13 days to get to another part of the United States that is devastated. I told you it took about 6 or 7 hours for him to get to Israel in order to support them. They craft a $2 billion aid package, right? I put that in there for you guys to look at. But we're not finished. Where's the last article? I wanted to do the, I think I put the article, I hope I put the article in there for you guys, but I wanted you guys to know with the Israeli-Hamas conflict, Iran is funding Hamas. I don't know how many of you remember last year, there was the Iran, that prisoner swap, and it was $6 billion. I'm 1,000% sure I put that article in the chat for you. But I want to show you how much money is going to foreign affairs. Where's the stimulus money for the United States citizens who are barely making it check to check? Who don't have EBT or SNAP card benefits, but do need supplemental income to feed a family of more than 3 or more than 4, or who have extended family members that are dependent on them because the homelessness is going up.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, everything that you're talking about as far as famine and things, this is real. And, and other things that are real. I talked to a very close friend of mine who has a high ranking job in a corporate tech position, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she was just talking about how even the raising of insurance,
Yes.
right? People are raising insurance so high that it's almost hard for you to even have insurance for a family, especially if you have someone who has some kind of chronic illness, chronic sickness.
Yes.
What do you do? how do you maintain when the insurance is higher than
whatever raise you got that
It's
year.
higher than the CPI and definitely way higher than the raise. And so people are having problems in that regard. Like you're getting squeezed from so many different directions. And
When maybe some of that funding can go back towards that to supplement and offset the cost that the United States citizens have at home. But I just want to show you how much money is not going to you. And more importantly, I want you to see you are footing the bill for a lot of that money. Taxpaying citizens of the United States, you're footing those bills. And if you're not footing the bill, understand that your future progeny, your children, your grandchildren, that crushing debt is sitting on their heads. And it really, that I did all of that to really, Chappelle House Love, answer your question about the U.S. purposely imploding in on itself. Because you're taking all of your resources and funds and giving it out to everybody while the people inside suffer.
you gotta give my brother's name Chapel.
Chapel, I'm sorry. Because I keep thinking about our friend Chappelle, Anthony. Chapel House Love, I'm sorry. So I have those articles there for you to look at, and really what we want you to take away is when you're doing your research, it's very important that you use the critical thinking in order to do other digging. And that's really how I was able to kind of get down this rabbit hole, is to say, not feeling these buzzwords. I've never heard of acute food insecurity, right? It's famine or it's not famine.
Sure.
But I'm going to leave you with this for my Sunday school students, right? Joseph had a dream. While he was in Egypt, he was imprisoned, and Joseph had a dream that there were 7 years of famine. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. 7 years of famine, and then there was going to be 7 years of prosperity. Now, the 7 years of prosperity came before the 7 years of famine, and because he had that forecast, that dream, that foresight, that vision, he became an asset to Israel, that while everybody was enjoying prosperity, he was storing things away in the storehouse. For 7 years he did that. So if you're talking about dollar cost averaging, he was food cost averaging. And he did it in such a way that when the 7 years of famine showed up, the entire land around Egypt had to come to Egypt to buy food. And there was more than enough food for the Egyptians as well as for people coming from other lands. And Egypt made out like a fat cat because they were prepared. The moral of the story is we have the vision. They told us since 2022, there's a famine coming, And it's because they're getting tripped up with some of their diabolical dastardliness, right? That they don't have the solution to the crisis that they're going to create in place yet. But understand that they are already working towards it. We talked about California, and that's just California. We don't know what other countries are being paid to not farm, and they just didn't write a story about it, or we didn't find that story, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe they had to sign a non-disclosure agreement or something like that, right? But we know that you are conspiring against the people by creating scarcity. And I'm gonna tell you, the fastest way to control somebody is to control their food supply. You start starving people, most people are going to do whatever you ask them to do. And if you starve people and then come out like a savior, right? Even Lucifer masquerades as an angel of light. They come out like a savior, people are pretty much going to do whatever you tell them, and it's going to be 2020 all over again. Because nobody knew what that was, so everybody was just going along with, what do you need us to do so we don't get sick, or so we don't die, or whatever the situation is. But we're going to leave you guys with that.
Should I get on my soapbox, though? But I don't really want to get on my soapbox. You just said something. What did you say? So do everything so that they don't die.
Because that's the type of fear they have in them. And those are the buzzwords. There's a clip of a montage of newscasters all saying, nobody is safe. And they pause.
Okay.
Until everybody is safe. And we know that if-then logic doesn't work. Everybody can't possibly be safe. So if that is the if-then logic, we know that nobody really is safe. And your subconscious mind knows that if-then logic. Right. So they're telling you, you're not safe. You're not safe. You're not safe. You have to do this in order to be safe.
Well, I mean, I don't want to go too far past what we're talking about. You know, we're talking about always about arbitrage and opportunities,
Yes.
just stacking.
Yes.
But what she is talking about, if you're gonna have a fight against this machine, right?
Yeah.
Some people are gonna have to die, and that's what it gets down to. You look back in biblical times, you look back in history, the heroes that we talk about, they put their life on the line, and some people have to die. You got to be ready to die if you're going to fight for this. You can't be scared and, like she said, pushed to the side, and because you are starving us, then I'll do anything that you say. No, we're going to fight. We're going to fight to the end. We're going to fight till we die. You know, carry me out on my shield, as they say. But some people have to be ready to die. You see our heroes. They
Were
died.
martyred.
They died for this stuff, and so some of us have to be ready for that. And you know, that's just the way it is if you're gonna fight this machine.
But yeah, but you don't want to get overtaken as though there's a thief in the night. So us sharing the truth. Hi, KW1. Us sharing the truth about what is happening, how they're doing it, even understanding the ways that they're doing it, the reasons that they're doing it, knocking down propaganda such as because these developing nations and the frontier nations, they don't know how to manage their monetary policy. No, neither do you. And you're not mismanaging and misallocating your money, you are mismanaging and misallocating the people's money. So some of these systems do, like he said, they have to get taken down. I think a very good way is for citizens to be a little bit more cognizant about what's going on, because if you can abolish that fear, what do we do? What do we do? What is the president going to do? What is the government going to do to help us? And that's typically what we hear from the masses. What is the government doing to help? What is the government doing about the situation? They're not doing about the situation. What are you going to do about this situation? We know it's happening. We know how it's happening. And we even realize that we have a good amount of time before it happens. Now, is it inevitable? Absolutely. Because they're working diligently to make it happen.
They are.
But you have to work just as diligently to, like we said, not be caught like a thief like a thief in the night in your house. You got to batten down your hatches. You got to lock your doors. You got to set up the security you need in order to keep your house from being overrun and overtaken by the enemy. How do you do that? Very simple right now. Stack your precious metals.
Stack your ounces.
Dollar cost average your Bitcoin. We understand that Bitcoin and precious metals are sound money. We understand that the fiat dollar is not sound money, and it's constantly being devaluated to the point where they're really just holding it up. It's only an amount of time before it truly collapses, because they do want to collapse it in order to usher in, and it's time, right? History has shown us that every so many years, let's say 30 to 50 years, because it used to be 20 to 30 years. I'm going to say 30
average,
to 50.
you know, if you take the average, they say 47 years for any given currency before it goes back to its value of zero. So the dollar is past that. So
Way
it's
past
past
that.
the point where it should be coming down to zero. I believe you said the stat is 98 or 99% down
98.6.
since President Richard Milhouse Nixon took it off the gold standard. You know, so thank you for that. And that was supposed to be temporary. It's temporary for what, 52 years?
But these old people in government, they live for today. They don't care about your children. They don't care about your grandchildren. And that's why a lot of the moves they may not seem that they make sense to the people, but it makes sense to me, because I know you're saying we don't care about the people. We're going to do what benefits us today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Chapel House Love says, I
There we go.
love you guys for taking the time out y'all day to deliver what I consider some of the best curated news on the tube. Oh boy. God bless you both and your family. God bless you guys too. Thank you so much for joining us. We are going to be doing a partial celebration for the spoiled 13-year-old that lives in our house today. So we're having a nice dinner, and then on Sunday he's going to have a party where people come over, cake, presents, ice cream, pizza, wings. No animals.
Ferris wheel. I got stuff
No
like that.
Ferris wheel. Not even a bouncy house, because he's too old for that now. Tino would love it. But we're going to leave you guys, and Simon and I are going to continue to vet this information. Simon's going to work hard to keep me from diving so far down the rabbit hole that I come up needing a straight jacket. And hopefully we can see you guys maybe this weekend or next week.
Yeah, that's it.
Bye. Y'all be safe. Enjoy your weekend and make sure you're getting your non-perishable goods and your extra water.